The night was darker than usual over the dense forest near the human military base. The stars above seemed to flicker weakly, as if they were trying to warn anyone who cared to look up about the strange events unfolding below. Somewhere deep within that forest, a soft hum filled the air, a sound so faint it could easily be mistaken for the wind rustling through the trees. But this wasn't the wind. It was something far more unusual. Eunhwa, a young alien girl with shimmering silver hair and glowing blue eyes, crouched behind a thick tree trunk. Her body was tense, her mind racing. She had crash-landed on this planet only hours ago, after an unexpected malfunction in her spacecraft. Now, she found herself stranded in unfamiliar territory, surrounded by towering trees and strange noises she couldn't quite understand. This world felt both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She had no idea where she was or what kind of creatures lived here, but one thing was clear: she wasn't alone. In the distance, bright lights blinked rhythmically from a large structure tucked away among the trees. Eunhwa squinted, her sharp vision cutting through the darkness. The building looked like nothing she'd ever seen before. Its walls were smooth and metallic, and there were strange symbols painted on its surface. Whatever this place was, it didn't belong to nature. It belonged to someone or something else. Eunhwa's heart raced as she considered her options. Her ship was damaged beyond repair, scattered pieces of it lying somewhere deeper in the woods. Without help, she wouldn't survive long on this planet. But how could she ask for help when she didn't even know who or what lived here? For all she knew, the beings responsible for this mysterious structure might see her as a threat, or worse, they might try to capture her. Still, curiosity burned inside her chest. As much as fear urged her to stay hidden, her instincts told her to investigate further. Maybe, just maybe, she could find something useful inside that building, something that could help her fix her ship, or send a distress signal back home. Taking a deep breath, Eunhwa stepped out from behind the tree and began moving cautiously toward the light. Every step felt heavier than the last. The ground beneath her feet was soft and uneven, unlike the hard, flat surfaces she was used to walking on. Strange insects buzzed around her head, their tiny wings making high-pitched sounds that grated against her sensitive ears. Every shadow seemed to shift and twist, playing tricks on her already frayed nerves. But Eunhwa pressed on, determined not to let fear take control. As she drew closer to the building, she noticed movement near its entrance. Two figures stood guard outside, dressed in dark uniforms and carrying weapons strapped to their sides. They spoke in low voices, their words incomprehensible to her. Eunhwa froze, her glowing eyes widening as she realized these beings weren't just animals. They were intelligent creatures, capable of communication and organization. Humans, she thought, recalling fragmented data from her ship's database. That's what they called themselves. Her first instinct was to run. These humans didn't look friendly. Their rigid postures and constant scanning of the area suggested they were prepared for trouble. But then again, running wouldn't solve anything. If she wanted answers or supplies, she needed to get inside that building, and for that, she would have to be clever. Eunhwa ducked behind another tree, her mind working quickly. Her species possessed certain abilities that set them apart from most others. One of those abilities was camouflage, an advanced form of blending into her surroundings that rendered her nearly invisible to the naked eye. Closing her eyes, she focused her energy and willed her body to adapt to the environment. Within moments, her shimmering silver hair dulled to match the color of the bark, and her glowing blue eyes dimmed until they were barely visible. Satisfied with her disguise, she crept forward once more. The guards remained oblivious as she slipped past them, her movements silent and deliberate. Once inside the building, Eunhwa paused to take in her surroundings. The interior was stark and clinical, with cold metal walls and fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. Long corridors stretched in every direction, each lined with doors marked with numbers and symbols. It smelled sterile, almost artificial, and the air carried a faint metallic tang that made her nose wrinkle. She moved carefully, sticking to the shadows whenever possible. Along the way, she passed several rooms with glass windows, giving her glimpses of what lay inside. Some contained strange machines humming softly, while others held rows of vials filled with colorful liquids. One room caught her attention, in particular, a laboratory filled with equipment that looked vaguely familiar. There were microscopes, test tubes, and shelves stocked with bottles labeled in languages she didn't recognize. In the center of the room sat a small refrigerator-like device, its door slightly ajar. Curiosity got the better of her. Slipping inside, Eunhwa approached the fridge. Inside, she found a single vial containing a glowing green liquid. A label on the vial read, Experimental Serum X27. Though she couldn't read the human language perfectly, the word serum triggered a memory from her studies, a substance designed to enhance physical capabilities. Could this be useful? She hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks. What if it was dangerous? What if it harmed her instead of helping? But desperation outweighed caution. Eunhwa grabbed the vial and uncapped it without another thought. Bringing it to her lips, she drank the entire contents in one swift motion. The liquid tasted bitter, sending a shiver down her spine. Almost immediately, warmth spread through her body, starting from her stomach and radiating outward. At first, it felt pleasant, like sipping hot tea on a cold day. But then the sensation intensified, becoming overwhelming. Eunhwa dropped the empty vial, clutching her chest as waves of energy surged through her veins. Her vision blurred, and her skin began to tingle, as though electricity coursed beneath it. Panic set in as she stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of instruments. The noise echoed loudly in the quiet lab, drawing unwanted attention. From down the hall, footsteps approached rapidly. Voices shouted orders, growing louder with each passing second. Eunhwa's newfound strength kicked in unexpectedly, allowing her to leap onto a nearby counter with ease. Her muscles felt stronger, faster, more powerful than ever before, but also chaotic, unpredictable. She didn't know how to control it. All she knew was that she needed to get out of there and fast. With one final burst of energy, she smashed through the window, shards of glass raining down as she landed gracefully on the other side. Behind her, alarms blared, red lights flashing throughout the building. Eunhwa didn't stop to look back. She ran as fast as her enhanced legs would carry her, disappearing into the night. What she didn't realize was that drinking the serum had done more than just energize her. It had awakened something deep within her biology, something neither she nor the humans fully understood yet. And now, there was no turning back. Eunhwa didn't stop running until her legs burned and her lungs felt like they were on fire. The forest around her was a blur of shadows and shapes, the trees whipping past her as she pushed herself harder than ever before. She could feel the serum coursing through her veins, making her faster, stronger, but also wilder. Every step she took sent tremors through the ground beneath her feet, and every breath she drew seemed to echo unnaturally loud in the stillness of the night. She finally collapsed against the base of a massive oak tree, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. Her glowing blue eyes darted around nervously, scanning the darkness for any sign of pursuit. So far, she seemed to be alone, but she knew it wouldn't last long. Those humans had seen her, or at least heard her. They would come looking for her, and when they did, she wasn't sure what she'd do. The surge of energy from the serum hadn't faded. If anything, it was growing stronger. Eunhwa clenched her fists, feeling the muscles in her arms twitch uncontrollably. It was as though her body was trying to adapt to this new power, but couldn't quite keep up. Her hands sparked faintly with an electric-like glow, and tiny arcs of energy crackled between her fingertips. She stared at them in awe and fear. What was happening to her? Was this normal? Or had she made a terrible mistake? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp pain in her temples. It felt like needles pricking her brain, sending waves of agony through her skull. She groaned, pressing her palms against her forehead as if that might somehow dull the sensation. But it only grew worse, forcing her to curl into a ball on the damp forest floor. Visions began flashing before her eyes, images she didn't recognize but somehow felt connected to. A battlefield lit by explosions. A figure cloaked in shadow, standing over a fallen soldier. A city skyline crumbling under the weight of something monstrous. Yunhua gasped, shaking her head violently to dispel the visions. When she opened her eyes again, the forest was silent once more. The pain subsided slowly, leaving behind a dull ache that lingered in the back of her mind. She sat up cautiously, brushing dirt and leaves off her clothes. Whatever those images had been, they weren't real, at least, not yet. But they felt significant. Like warnings from some part of her consciousness she didn't fully understand. Forcing herself to focus, Yunhua stood and began walking deeper into the woods. She needed answers, and staying in one place wasn't going to help her find them. As she moved, she noticed subtle changes in her surroundings. The air seemed charged with static electricity, causing her hair to stand on end. Even the animals in the forest seemed restless, their usual nocturnal routines disrupted by something unseen. Birds chirped erratically overhead, while small creatures scurried away at the sound of her footsteps. It was as though nature itself could sense the unnatural energy radiating from her body. After what felt like hours, Yunhua stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing stood a makeshift shelter. A crude lean-to constructed from branches and leaves. Someone had been here recently. She hesitated, unsure whether to approach or retreat. On one hand, whoever had built this shelter might have supplies she could use. On the other hand, they might also pose a threat. Humans were unpredictable, and she wasn't ready to face another confrontation, not after what had happened back at the military base. Before she could decide, a voice called out from behind her. "Who's there?" it asked sharply, tinged with suspicion. Yunhua spun around, her heart pounding as she spotted a young man emerging from the trees. He looked human, dressed in simple clothing that blended well with the forest. His dark hair was messy, and his face bore traces of dirt and sweat. Despite his rugged appearance, there was a kindness in his brown eyes that put her slightly at ease. "I mean no harm," Yunhua said quickly, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. Her voice came out softer than she intended, almost melodic in its tone. The young man blinked in surprise, clearly taken aback by her presence and perhaps her appearance as well. Her shimmering silver hair and glowing blue eyes were impossible to miss, even in the dim light. "Are you one of them?" he asked, hesitantly, glancing over his shoulder toward the direction of the military base. His name was Jae-min, a scientist who worked at the facility but often retreated to the forest to escape the rigid structure of his life there. He had always suspected the experiments conducted at the base were unethical, but seeing proof of it right in front of him shook him to his core. "One of whom?" Yunhua replied, tilting her head in confusion. She didn't understand the question, or why he seemed so wary of her. Jae-min sighed, lowering his guard slightly. "Never mind. You're not from around here, are you?" It wasn't really a question. The answer was obvious just by looking at her. Still, he waited for her response. "No," she admitted, dropping her hands to her sides. "I am lost. My ship crashed nearby, and I ended up at that place." She gestured vaguely, in the direction of the military base. "They have things there, things I thought might help me. But now—" She trailed off, her expression troubled as she glanced down at her hands. They were still sparking faintly, though less violently than before. Jae-min frowned, stepping closer to get a better look at her. "What happened to you?" he asked, his voice softer now. There was genuine concern in his tone, which surprised even him. He had spent years avoiding emotional attachments to anyone or anything. Yet here he was, feeling compelled to help this strange girl. Yunhua hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Trust didn't come easily to her, especially not with humans. But Jaemin seemed different, gentler, somehow. After a moment's deliberation, she decided to tell him part of the truth. "I drank something," she confessed, holding up her glowing hands. "It was meant for your people, I think, to make them stronger, but it is doing strange things to me." Jaemin's eyes widened in realization. "The serum," he murmured, mostly to himself. He had read about it in classified reports. It was an experimental compound designed to enhance physical abilities, though its side effects were poorly understood. Testing it on humans had been deemed too risky, which was why it had been shelved indefinitely. Until now, apparently. "This isn't good," Jaemin muttered, running a hand through his hair. "If they find out what happened, they'll be coming for you. And they won't stop until they bring you back, or worse." Yunhua's stomach churned at his words. She had already guessed as much, but hearing it confirmed aloud made her situation feel even more dire. "Then I must leave," she said firmly, turning away from him. "Thank you for your warning." "Wait," Jaemin called after her, taking a step forward. "You can't just run off on your own. You don't know what this stuff is capable of. It could kill you or worse, turn you into something you don't want to be." Yunhua stopped mid-step, her shoulders stiffening. "And what would you suggest?" she asked, her voice laced with frustration. "Stay here and wait for them to capture me?" "I do not think so." Jaemin hesitated, weighing his options. Helping her was dangerous not just for her, but for him as well. If anyone found out, he would lose everything: his job, his freedom, maybe even his life. But abandoning her felt equally wrong. She was scared, confused, and clearly in over her head. And deep down, he knew he couldn't walk away from someone in need. "I'll help you," he said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "But we need to move fast. They'll be searching for you soon. And we don't have much time." Yunhua turned to face him, her glowing eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Why would you help me?" she asked, her tone guarded. "You owe me nothing." Jaemin shrugged, offering her a small, nervous smile. "Let's just say I've seen enough of what they're capable of to know it's not always the right thing. Besides, you're not the first person to get caught in their experiments, and you probably won't be the last." For the first time since landing on Earth, Yunhua felt a flicker of hope. Maybe not all humans were as bad as the ones she'd encountered at the base. Maybe some of them were worth trusting. With a hesitant nod, she stepped closer to Jaemin. "All right," she said quietly. "What do we do next?" Quote, Jaemin led Yunhua deeper into the forest, moving quickly but carefully to avoid leaving obvious traces of their path. The moonlight filtered through the canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the ground as they navigated the uneven terrain. Yunhua followed him closely, her glowing blue eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. Despite Jaemin's promise to help her, she couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was inevitable. Every rustle of leaves or distant sound made her flinch, her heightened senses amplifying every noise until it felt deafening. "You're doing fine," Jaemin whispered over his shoulder, sensing her unease. "Just stay close and try not to touch anything." His voice was calm, but there was an edge of urgency in his tone that betrayed his own nerves. He knew they were running out of time. The military wouldn't wait long before sending search parties into the woods, and when they did, finding Yunhua would be their top priority. Yunhua nodded, though her mind was racing with questions. Who were these humans? Why had they created such a dangerous substance? And most importantly, what would happen to her if they caught her? She didn't dare ask Jaemin these things aloud, not yet. For now, she focused on keeping up with him, her enhanced speed, making it easy to match his pace, despite the rough ground beneath her feet. After nearly an hour of walking, they reached a narrow stream cutting through the forest. Jaemin knelt beside it, cupping water in his hands to drink. "We'll rest here for a bit," he said, glancing at Yunhua. "But we can't stay too long. Yunhua hesitated before kneeling beside him. She dipped her fingers into the cool water, watching as ripples spread outward from her touch. The sensation was soothing, almost grounding. And for a moment, she allowed herself to relax. But then, her reflection caught her eye, her glowing eyes staring back at her like twin moons, and the reality of her situation came crashing down again. She wasn't just an alien stranded on Earth anymore. She was something else entirely. Something unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. "Does it hurt?" Jaemin asked suddenly, breaking the silence. He had been watching her quietly, noticing the way her body seemed to tremble slightly, as if struggling to contain some unseen force within her. Yunhua looked up, startled by the question. "Not always," she admitted after a pause. "Sometimes it feels strange, like my body is trying to change, but it doesn't know how." Jaemin frowned, his brow furrowing in thought. The serum, it's designed to enhance physical abilities. Strength, speed, endurance. But it wasn't meant for someone like you. Your biology is different. It's probably reacting in ways no one could have predicted. Quote, "That does not sound good," Yunhua muttered, pulling her hand out of the water. Tiny droplets clung to her skin, shimmering faintly, as if charged with static electricity. Even her touch seemed to alter the world around her now. "It's not," Jaemin agreed grimly. "If we don't figure out how to stabilize whatever's happening to you, it could get worse. A lot worse." Yunhua sighed, leaning back against a tree trunk. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. The energy coursing through her veins felt restless, like a storm trapped inside her body. It wanted out, but she didn't know how to let it go without losing control completely. As they sat in silence, the sound of distant voices drifted through the trees. Both Yunhua and Jaemin froze, their heads snapping toward the direction of the noise. Footsteps followed, accompanied by the occasional crackle of a radio. Searchlights pierced the darkness, their beams sweeping across the forest like ghostly fingers. "They're here," Jaemin whispered urgently, grabbing Yunhua's arm. "We need to move now." Yunhua didn't argue. She sprang to her feet, her movements faster than ever before thanks to the serum. Together, they darted away from the stream, weaving between trees and ducking under low-hanging branches. The soldiers' voices grew louder behind them, their shouts echoing through the night. They were closing in. Jaemin led them to a cluster of boulders, partially hidden by thick underbrush. "Hide here," he instructed, pushing aside vines to reveal a narrow crevice between two rocks. "Stay quiet and don't move until I come back for you." Yunhua hesitated, her instincts screaming at her not to separate from him. But she trusted him, or at least, she wanted to. Nodding reluctantly, she slipped into the hiding spot, pulling the vines back into place to conceal herself. Jaemin gave her a reassuring smile before disappearing into the shadows. Alone in the cramped space, Yunhua pressed herself against the cold stone, her heart pounding in her chest. The soldiers were getting closer, their flashlights illuminating patches of the forest floor. She held her breath, willing herself to remain still despite the chaos raging inside her body. The energy surged unpredictably, causing her hands to spark faintly. She clenched her fists tightly, praying the glow wouldn't give her away. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the woods. Yunhua's eyes widened as she realized what had happened. Jaemin had deliberately knocked over a tree to draw the soldiers' attention away from her hiding spot. Shouts erupted as the search party changed course, heading toward the source of the noise. Tears pricked at the corners of Yunhua's eyes. She hadn't known Jaemin for long, but she already owed him so much. Risking his life for hers was more than she had expected from a human, or anyone, for that matter. She resolved then and there that if she survived this, she would find a way to repay him. Minutes passed like hours as Yunhua waited, straining to hear any sign of Jaemin returning. Finally, the sounds of the search party faded into the distance, replaced by an eerie silence. Just as she began to worry that something had gone wrong, A soft whisper broke through the quiet. "It's okay," Jamin said, parting the vines gently. "They're gone for now." Yunhua scrambled out of the crevice, relief washing over her as she saw him unharmed. "You are safe," she breathed, her voice trembling slightly. "For now," Jamin repeated, brushing dirt off his clothes. "But we can't stay here. They'll double back eventually. And next time, they might bring heavier gear. We need to find somewhere safer. A place they won't think to look." Yunhua nodded, determination replacing her earlier fear. "Where do we go?" And Jamin glanced around, considering their options. "There's an old bunker not far from here. It's abandoned, but it should provide enough cover for us to regroup. From there, we can figure out our next move." Without another word, they set off once more, moving cautiously through the forest. The journey took longer than expected, but eventually, they arrived at the bunker. A crumbling concrete structure, half buried in the earth. Vines snaked across its surface, and rusted metal doors creaked loudly as Jamin pushed them open. Inside, the air was musty and stale, carrying the faint scent of mildew. Dust covered everything, and the walls were lined with shelves that had long since emptied of their contents. Still, it was shelter, and right now, that was all they needed. Yunhua sank onto the floor, exhaustion overtaking her. Her body continued to pulse with energy, but the adrenaline that had fueled her escape was fading fast. Jamin rummaged through a small pack he'd brought with him, pulling out a bottle of water and a few protein bars. "Here," he said, handing her the supplies. "You need to eat. It'll help stabilize your strength." Yunhua accepted them gratefully, tearing into the food with surprising hunger. As she ate, she watched Jamin pacing back and forth, his expression troubled. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. He stopped mid-step, turning to face her. "I'm thinking about what comes next. You're changing, Yunhua. Whether you want to or not, this serum is rewriting parts of you. If we don't find a way to counteract it or at least control it, you could lose yourself completely." Yunhua lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing patterns on the dusty floor. Jamin hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Then we'll deal with it together. Whatever happens, I won't leave you alone in this." For the first time since arriving on Earth, Yunhua felt a flicker of hope, not because she believed everything would work out perfectly, but because she finally had someone who truly cared about what happened to her. Someone willing to stand by her side, no matter how dangerous things became. As dawn began to break outside, casting pale light through cracks in the bunker's walls, Yunhua leaned back against the cool concrete. Her body still buzzed with energy. But for now, she allowed herself to rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. But for tonight, she wasn't alone. The bunker was quiet, save for the occasional drip of water from the ceiling and the faint hum of energy radiating from Yunhua's body. She sat cross-legged on the cold concrete floor, her glowing blue eyes fixed on the cracks in the wall, as if searching for answers in their jagged patterns. The protein bar Jamin had given her lay half-eaten beside her, but she couldn't bring herself to finish it. Her stomach churned with a mix of hunger and unease, her mind racing faster than her heart. Jamin paced back and forth, his footsteps echoing softly against the walls. He had been doing this for hours, trying to think of a plan while keeping an ear out for any signs of danger. His thoughts were a tangled mess, part concern for Yunhua, part fear of what might happen if they were discovered. But most of all, he felt a growing sense of responsibility. He had chosen to help her, and now there was no turning back. Whether he liked it or not, their fates were intertwined. "We can't stay here forever," Jamin said finally, stopping near Yunhua. His voice was calm, but firm, cutting through the silence like a knife. "They'll find us eventually. We need to figure out our next move." Yunhua looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "What do you suggest?" she asked, her tone flat. She sounded tired, both physically and emotionally. The serum inside her continued to surge unpredictably, making it hard for her to focus. Every time she tried to relax, another wave of energy would ripple through her veins, leaving her feeling restless and agitated. Jaemin sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. First, we need to understand what's happening to you. The serum, it's designed to enhance physical abilities, but your biology is different. It's reacting in ways no one could have anticipated. If we don't find a way to stabilize it, things could get dangerous. Eunhwa nodded slowly, though the weight of his words seemed to press down on her even more. Dangerous was an understatement. She could feel the changes within her, growing stronger by the hour. Her muscles twitched involuntarily, and her skin occasionally sparked with tiny arcs of electricity. Worse still, her mind kept flashing with visions, snippets of battles, destruction, and chaos that felt eerily familiar yet completely foreign. She didn't know what they meant, but they terrified her. "I will try," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I do not know how." That's where I come in," Jaemin replied, kneeling beside her. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small notebook and pen. Flipping it open, he began jotting down notes. "I've worked with experimental compounds before. Not exactly like this one, but enough to understand the basics. If we can figure out how the serum interacts with your body, maybe we can find a way to counteract its effects, or at least control them." Eunhwa watched him write, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You would do that for me?" she asked, her tone tinged with disbelief. "Even though I am not human?" Jaemin paused, looking up at her. "I'm not doing this because you're human or alien," he said firmly. "I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, and because I believe you deserve a chance to survive." His words struck a chord deep within her. For so long, Eunhwa had seen humans as unpredictable and potentially hostile beings. But Jaemin was proving her wrong, at great personal risk. She didn't know how to thank him, so instead, she simply nodded again, her glowing eyes softening slightly. Over the next few hours, they worked together, piecing together what little information they had about the serum. Jaemin asked Eunhwa questions about how she felt, documenting every detail she shared. He noted the fluctuations in her energy levels, the sparks emanating from her skin, and the strange visions she described. Meanwhile, Eunhwa focused on controlling her breathing, trying to steady the storm raging inside her. Despite their efforts, progress was slow. The serum's effects were unlike anything either of them had encountered before. Just when they thought they were making headway, another surge of energy would disrupt everything, forcing them to start over. By midday, frustration began to set in. Eunhwa clenched her fists tightly, her knuckles glowing faintly as she fought to suppress another wave of chaotic energy. "This is hopeless," she muttered under her breath, her voice laced with anger and despair. "I cannot control it. No matter what I do, it keeps fighting me." "It's not hopeless," Jaemin insisted, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We just need more time. And maybe some outside help." Eunhwa frowned, shaking her head. "No. You said yourself, they will come after me. Trusting anyone else is too risky." "No." Jaemin hesitated, knowing she was right. Reaching out for help could expose them both to even greater danger. But staying hidden wasn't a permanent solution either. They needed resources, equipment, knowledge, anything that might give them an edge, and Jaemin knew exactly where to find it. "There's someone I trust," he said carefully, gauging her reaction. "A colleague of mine named Sujin. She works in the same lab as me, but she doesn't agree with the military's methods. If anyone can help us without turning us in, it's her." Eunhwa stared at him, weighing the risks. She didn't want to involve anyone else, especially not another human. But deep down, she knew Jaemin was right. Without help, they wouldn't last much longer. Finally, She gave a reluctant nod. Fine. But if she betrays us, she won't, Jae-min interrupted firmly. With their decision made, they prepared to leave the bunker. Jae-min packed up his supplies while Eun-hwa stood guard outside, her heightened senses scanning the surrounding forest for any sign of danger. The air was tense, charged with anticipation and fear. Neither of them spoke as they moved quickly through the woods, sticking to the shadows and avoiding open spaces. It took nearly 2 hours to reach the edge of the forest, where a narrow dirt road led toward the outskirts of a small town. Jae-min slowed his pace, glancing around cautiously. Sujin lives just beyond here, he whispered. We'll approach carefully. But if anything feels off, we retreat immediately. Eun-hwa nodded, her glowing eyes flickering nervously. She trusted Jae-min, but trusting his colleague was another matter entirely. Still, she followed him without question, her body coiled like a spring, ready to react at a moment's notice. As they approached a modest house tucked away among tall trees, Jae-min signaled for Eun-hwa to wait behind a cluster of bushes. Taking a deep breath, he stepped onto the porch and knocked gently on the door. Moments later, it creaked open, revealing a young woman with short black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Jae-min? Sujin asked, surprise evident in her voice. What are you doing here? And who's this? She glanced past him, spotting Eun-hwa standing in the shadows. Before Jae-min could respond, Eun-hwa stepped forward, her glowing form impossible to conceal. I am Eun-hwa, she said simply, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. And I need your help. Sujin blinked, clearly taken aback by the sight of her. But instead of panicking or calling for backup, she studied Eun-hwa intently, her expression thoughtful rather than fearful. After a long pause, she stepped aside and gestured for them to enter. Come inside, she said. We have a lot to discuss. Relief washed over Jae-min as he followed Sujin into the house, Eun-hwa close behind. For the first time since meeting her, he allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they weren't completely alone in this fight. The inside of Sujin's house was small but cozy, filled with books and papers scattered across every surface. A faint smell of coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of old wood and worn furniture. Despite the clutter, there was a sense of warmth to the space, a stark contrast to the cold, sterile environment of the military base. Eun-hwa stood awkwardly near the door, her glowing blue eyes scanning the room while Jae-min explained their situation to Sujin. So let me get this straight, Sujin said, leaning back in her chair as she processed what she just heard. This alien girl drank an experimental serum meant for humans. And now, it's rewriting her biology in ways we don't fully understand. Meanwhile, the military is hunting her down because they think she's some kind of threat. She paused, glancing at Eun-hwa skeptically. Am I missing anything? Eun-hwa shifted uncomfortably under her gaze but didn't respond. She wasn't used to being talked about so casually, especially not by someone she had just met. Still, she trusted Jae-min, and if he believed Sujin could help, then she would give her a chance. That's pretty much it, Jae-min confirmed, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. We need your expertise, Sujin. If anyone can figure out how to stabilize the serum's effects on Eun-hwa, it's you. Sujin sighed, pushing her glasses further up her nose as she thought for a moment. All right, she said finally, standing up. I'll help, but we need to move fast. If the military finds out I'm involved, none of us will be safe. Relief washed over Jae-min's face. And even Eun-hwa seemed to relax slightly. For the first time since landing on Earth, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she had a fighting chance. Over the next several hours, Sujin worked tirelessly, gathering equipment from hidden compartments in her home and setting up a makeshift lab in her living room. She asked Eun-hwa countless questions about how she felt, documenting every detail with meticulous precision. Meanwhile, Jae-min assisted where he could, fetching supplies and keeping watch outside in case anyone approached the house. As the day wore on, Yunhua began to feel a strange shift within her body. The chaotic energy that had been surging uncontrollably started to settle, though it didn't disappear entirely. Instead, it seemed to flow more evenly, like a river finding its course after a storm. She could feel her strength growing not just physically, but mentally too. Her mind became sharper, clearer, allowing her to focus in ways she hadn't been able to before. "This is incredible," Sujin murmured, jotting down notes furiously. "The serum isn't just enhancing your abilities, it's adapting to your biology. It's almost as if it's learning from you." Eunhwa frowned, unsure whether to be reassured or alarmed by Sujin's words. "What does that mean?" she asked cautiously. "It means you're evolving," Sujin replied, her tone tinged with awe. "Your body is using the serum to push past its natural limits. You're becoming something more." Jaemin exchanged a worried glance with Eunhwa. While the idea of gaining greater control over her powers was promising, the implications were unsettling. What exactly was she becoming? And at what cost? Before anyone could dwell on those questions, a loud knock at the door shattered the quiet atmosphere. Everyone froze, their hearts pounding as they stared at the entrance. Another knock followed, louder and more insistent this time. "Open up," a voice barked from outside. "We know you're in there." Yunhwa's eyes widened in panic, her hands sparking faintly as adrenaline surged through her veins. "They found us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jaemin moved quickly, grabbing a nearby bag and stuffing it with essential supplies. "We need to go now," he urged, motioning toward the back door. Sujin hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Take my car," she said, tossing him the keys. "It's parked behind the house. Go as far as you can. I'll hold them off." "No," Jaemin protested, shaking his head. "You'll be arrested, or worse. I'll be fine," Sujin insisted, her expression firm. "Just promise me you'll keep her safe." There was no time to argue. With a reluctant nod, Jaemin grabbed Eunhwa's hand and led her toward the back exit. As they slipped out into the night, they heard Sujin open the front door, her calm voice greeting the soldiers as if nothing was wrong. The sound of shouting faded behind them as Jaemin and Eunhwa sprinted toward the car. Jaemin fumbled with the keys for a moment before unlocking the vehicle and climbing inside. Eunhwa slid into the passenger seat, her glowing eyes darting around nervously as Jaemin started the engine. "We can't stay here," Jaemin said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "We need to put as much distance between us and this place as possible." Eunhwa nodded, though her thoughts were elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about Sujin and what might happen to her because of them. Guilt weighed heavily on her chest, but there was nothing she could do about it now. All she could do was trust that Jaemin's friend would be okay. For hours, they drove in silence, the road stretching endlessly before them. The farther they went, the quieter the world became, until all that remained was the hum of the engine and the rhythmic sound of rain tapping against the windshield. Eunhwa leaned her head against the window, watching the blurred landscape pass by. Her body still buzzed with energy, but it felt different now, more controlled, more focused. She wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Finally, Jaemin pulled over near a secluded overlooking a vast valley. The rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and cool. Stars dotted the sky above, their light reflecting off the wet ground below. "We should rest here for a bit," Jaemin said softly, turning off the engine. Eunhwa stepped out of the car, her breath catching as she took in the view. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a reminder of how vast and mysterious this planet truly was. For a moment, she forgot about the chaos swirling inside her and simply existed in the stillness of the night. Jaemin joined her, standing silently beside her as they gazed out at the horizon. Neither of them spoke for a long time, the weight of everything they had been through hanging heavy in the air. "What happens next?" Eunhwa asked finally, breaking the silence. Jaemin sighed, shoving his hands into his pockets. That depends on you, he admitted. You have incredible power now. Power that could change everything. You could expose the military's experiments, show humanity what they're capable of. Or you could leave. Return to wherever you came from, and never look back. Yunhua frowned, considering his words. Both options carried risks, but neither felt entirely right. Deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore what had happened to her, or the people who had helped her along the way. But she also couldn't forget where she came from, or the life she had left behind. I do not know, she admitted quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. But I cannot run forever. Not anymore. Jae-min nodded, understanding her hesitation. Whatever you decide, I'll stand by you, he promised. No matter what. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Eunhwa felt a flicker of hope, not because she believed everything would work out perfectly, but because she finally had someone who truly cared about what happened to her. Someone willing to fight alongside her, no matter how dangerous things became. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Eunhwa made her decision. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: she wouldn't face it alone.